Hello and welcome to Story Behind the Story, where romance readers and authors connect. I'm author Reese Ryan, author of sexy, emotional, grown folks romantic fiction featuring lots of family drama, surprising secrets, and a cast of complicated, sometimes messy characters. And today, my guest is going to be author Belle Calhoune, and we're going to be talking about building community in diverse small town romance. So that's a conversation I'm eager to get into. So we're going to bring Belle on in just a minute. But if you are new to our show, welcome and thank you for joining us. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. This is a very interactive show. So by all means, we encourage you to drop your questions or comments in the chat box. We will address them as we can as the show goes on. If you have questions for Belle or about the topic or what have you, or you just want to say hello, by all means, just drop it in the chat and then we'll get to it as we can. And don't forget, if you're new here or you haven't subscribed already before, hit the subscribe button. If you're enjoying the show today, make sure to hit the like button. It helps other people find the show. Just a few quick announcements. And number one is that the pre-orders are going on right now for the Bad Boy Experiment, which is my release later this month, the final planned book in my Bourbon Brothers series. And so if you haven't gotten it already or ordered it already, you can order it and get signed copies or a book plate and reader swag like a King's Finest coaster, the updated bookmark, stickers and that kind of thing, as well as access to a digital version of the commemorative booklet that I'm doing for readers. This has a curated list of recipes inspired by the different books in the series, as well as giving you some behind the scenes information about the series, as well as some secret stuff that I'm so excited to share with you. So if you want access to all those things, as well as a book that's either signed or has a book plate, make sure you pre-order your copy of the Bad Boy Experiment from either the Rip Bodice or Love Sweet Arrow, and you'll find the links to both in the description here below. Then also Friday, I'm going to be, as well as my guest, Belle Calhoune, is going to be, along with 100 other authors, we're going to be part of the Holly Jolly Holiday Party on Friday the 17th in the Coffee, Cupcakes, and Contemporaries Facebook group. So lots of gifts and giveaways and stuff will be happening all day there. Definitely don't want to miss that. The link to that is also in the description below. So those things you don't want to miss. So other things are coming up. I'll tell you about those later. Like, for instance, that's right. There is also, I'm going to be having the release party for this book at the end of the month on Tuesday the 28th. Nina Crespo and I, another Hollywood author, are going to be doing a joint pajama party in the Facebook group, the Racy Readers Room, Party Room. So we're going to do a pajama party and adult bedtime stories, basically. So every author is going to read from their book, and there's going to be lots of giveaways. And I will be giving away one of my favorite pieces of clothing at this point in my life. And I have convinced so many of my author friends to buy this piece of clothing. And it is a onesie, pajama onesie from Savage Times Fenty by Rihanna. And this is the most comfortable piece of clothing ever. If you live in an area where it gets super cold, it's like a hooded one-piece pajama. And it's just such a thick, comfortable, soft, whatever. And that's going to be part of the grand prize giveaway. So you don't want to miss that at the pajama party that Nina Crespo and I are having. That's Tuesday, December the 28th from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. And the link to that event or that group that it's going to be in is also in the description below. So that's plenty. So let's hop right to it. And by all means, I want to bring on Belle Calhoune. Hello,
Hey,
Belle. I'm so excited to have you here.
well, thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Day. So, for anyone who is unfamiliar with you and doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you write.
Okay, my name is Belle Calhoune, and I write for Harlequin Love Inspired, and I also now write for Grand Central Forever. So the two of us write for the same, although I write for Love Inspired, which is more of an inspirational, sweet romance. So I don't get any sexy times, but I write that type of sweet story. And then for Grand Central, I also write kind of sweet, nothing too steamy. I grew up across the street from a public library. I think at an early age, I became really fascinated with the whole idea of reading, and I had 100% access. So I think that was kind of my stomping grounds just for creatively being inspired. And I came from a medical household where my mother was a doctor, my father was a biologist. And I look back and I think I had two great parents because they never discouraged me from reading romance. They never, even as a 12-year-old, I was reading Harlequins. I was like reading those things, and never, not one time did they ever say, I've heard parents criticizing kids saying, put that quote trash down. My parents just let me be me. And I think that I went to college, became an English major, and I think I just kind of followed that path to I've always thought that storytelling, even from an early age, reading Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, I was just so fascinated by sort of the idea of this twisty romance and gothic. And it just, to me, I've always loved reading. And I think if you love reading and you have the stories going around in your head, then you sort of, there has to be some place for those stories to go. So
This is true.
yeah.
I love what you said about your parents because,
Yeah.
there is a tendency a lot of times for people to say that, especially like you were saying,
Yeah.
your parents were, doctors in the medical field and
Mhm.
stuff. And so,
Yeah.
they could have easily said that. And so I love
Easily.
that they let you be you.
Let me be me, and it just you never discouraged me, always encouraged me, and that means a lot to me now. Just thinking, and I try to do that with my girls, just to, if they artistic pursuits or whatever, wherever they want to go, you can't let it be about you. You just have to creatively let your child do them. So
I love that. And good evening. We're going to say a quick good evening to everybody who said hello to us. Thank you all so much. We've had lots of people saying hello, so I've been putting them up on the
hello,
screen as they've come
everyone.
across. So thank y'all so much. And so if you are watching us from Facebook, there's a link in the description there on Facebook that you actually need to click in order to give StreamYard permission to show us who you are. So otherwise, we'll just see your comments, but we won't know. Like Antoinette has already evidently done this, and so that's why we can see who she is. But on some of them, it'll just say Facebook, and we don't know who you are because you have to give us permission. So just so you know, but thank you all so much for being here and supporting us in this conversation that we're having. So, um, tell me a little bit. Okay, so you told us about how you kind of started off with your reading or whatever. So just give us a little bit more because a lot of our viewers are not only readers, but a lot of them are aspiring authors. So we always like to hear a little bit about your journey to becoming an author.
My journey is I really always wanted to be a writer, but I think, for I worked as a federal investigator for many years. My husband was in law school. I had a small daughter. I just did not have the time. I wrote one book during maternity leave. I sent it off, and I got a very polite hell no. It was a great nice letter, but they didn't want to publish it. And you know what? I sort of packed it away, and I was like, oh, whatever. And then, unfortunately, when my daughter was about 4 or 5 years old, my mother passed away. And the grief that I had for that, it almost strangely enough, it made me feel like I didn't deserve to write. It's strange. It was almost like writing made me happy. And so I was so sad at that time. I just said, you know what, this is a dream. I'm just going to put away. I'm not going to do this anymore. So it took many years till I had my second child. And we moved to Connecticut, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try this again. And somehow I think it was 2012, I went online, and they used to have Harlequin forums where aspiring authors and people who, just were readers would go on. And the woman who's been my editor since 2012 was on there, and it was a speed pitch with Emily where you had a chance to pitch her a book. Now, to be honest, I wasn't really that familiar with the love inspired line. I just wanted to be a romance writer. So I very quickly, typed a story, and she was great because she would give me feedback. So if there was something wrong with the story, she would say, no, this doesn't work. So I was just working overtime. And I'm proud to say that I was the very first member of that whole experience who got a contract.
Oh,
And that was just
wow.
like, happy day. Happy day. Yeah. Getting the call was great. So it really was something I kind of, without those online forums, because it was sort of, you didn't need an agent. You just were able to send it directly to her, get the feedback. And there were definitely things I did wrong. But the good thing was she would say, you know what, I don't think this is quite, love inspired. So I would tweak it. And then she would kind of set me on the right path.
Yeah.
And the rest is.
That is so exciting, though.
It was very exciting, especially when you kind of have that feeling, because something about her feedback. I remember the day when she was like, oh, I need your phone number. And I was like, oh, you need my phone number? Is this it? So there's something so interesting about that whole process where you think you're going to get a call, which is the call. And I'm just writing now my 16th Love Inspired. So been on the journey.
Yeah. Mary says, what a great story, indeed.
Oh, thank you.
I always love hearing about, that first story and getting that
Yeah.
first call. That's so exciting. So, like you said, we do both share two different publishers. We both write for Harlequin. You write for the Love Inspired imprint, and I write for Harlequin Desire, and have written for, a couple of those like Kamani and Carina Press. And then we both write for Grand Central.
Right.
So as a matter of fact, in Grand Central, not only do we share the imprint, but or the publisher, we also share an editor. So
I know.
tell us, for anybody again who's not familiar with you, like some of how long have you been with each imprint, and like around how many books have you written at this point in your career?
Okay. My first book with Love Inspired came out in 2013. And I'm about.
That was when my first book came out too, 2013.
Oh, yeah. So much in common. And I'm finishing up, or hoping to finish up soon, my 16th. My first with Grand Central just recently came out, so it hasn't been that long. Maybe 2 years. It takes a while for the books to come out. So, yeah. And I finished my second one, which will come out next summer, I think. So, Love Inspired I've been with for a while. But Grand Central, it's all very new, so I'm a newbie.
Yeah. And then I have one published with Grand Central as well at this point. Yeah, so we both started in 2013, but when I started in 2013, I was with Carina Press. So I did the two Carina Press that year, and then I think I did came into Kamani Romance maybe in 2017, I think was the first one. And then in 2018 was in Desire. So it's just like wild. But
yeah. I also
so tell us about some of your series then. Like so if somebody was coming to you and wanted to know, because that's often a question readers will post here, if the author is new to them, where would you suggest that they start? And so it's easy with the Grand Central because there's the one book, but over in your Love Inspired, where would you tell them to start?
With my Love Inspired, I had a series that was very popular called Alaskan Grooms. I actually had a movie made of one of the books called Love Alaska. I'm writing now. I really like my Home to Owl Creek series, which the fifth book is coming out in the spring, and I cannot wait for people to see the cover. It is really great. It's really great.
Nice.
And it's kind of interesting too, because I write a lot of Alaska, and with this particular book, it's an African-American dog musher who did the Iditarod and became famous, and then an African American veterinarian. So it's just sort of it's an interesting mix, and it's nice to sort of showcase that there is diversity in Alaska. And the cover, I just love it. I cannot wait for people to see it.
So, okay, so two questions right away, because I
Mhm.
did read Hiding in Alaska and I loved it. So my first question is, let me see, which one should I start with? So the first question is, you do have a lot of stories that are based in Alaska.
Yes.
Why is that?
I think because for me, when I pick, well, first of all, for Love Inspired, I'm from New England. I'm from the East Coast, but we are not encouraged. They do not write a lot of books. They do not publish a lot of books in that area. I guess they're just not popular. So they tell us not to do that area of the country. So for me, that's kind of like, well, that's what I know. That's where I'm from. So I kind of had to think of a place that could really challenge me, someplace that I thought was really interesting. And a lot of people were doing ranches and cowboys, and I don't know a lot about that. And I kind of wanted to do something, I guess, to make me stand out a little bit. And so I started this whole story, Love Alaska. The first book was an Alaskan wedding, and the premise was a journalist who goes to the town to sort of investigate this whole Operation Love they had, which they matched up people. So it was a cute story, but it kind of just got me into sort of the culture of Alaska, the people of Alaska, and it's interesting. It's kind of stuck because Hiding Alaska in my Alaskan books, those are I think twice or three times made Publishers Weekly. So Hiding in Alaska, there's something about the title, I guess, that was really intriguing because it almost sounds like a suspense because the heroine is in the WITSEC program. And I think readers like that type of stuff. And I think they like Alaska because it is different. It's different from up until recently. I think now there's someone else who's doing Alaska, but I've been the only author in the line to write Alaska at the time. I think Terry Wilson did. Terry Wilson used to write Alaska, but she left Love Inspired. So I kind of picked up her torch.
And definitely that stood out to me as well. There's something about Alaska that's just always, I don't know, feels just like this big adventure. One of the
Yes,
shows I
yes, me
still
too.
love that show so much was Northern Exposure.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh, yes. I think that kind of
and I feel like
inspired
there
me
was
a little
another
bit.
one too that was set in Alaska.
Yeah, I think Northern Exposure inspired me a little bit just because it was so rugged and different, and it's interesting to write in a place that you really don't know a lot about because you have to do a lot of research. And it's funny because now people think I'm from Alaska.
Yeah, like Mary asked that question,
People
and
think I'm from
I
Alaska. I'm
wonder
like,
if you had
no,
lived there at some point or something.
no.
It's a fascinating place, and I love that you wrote
It
about
is.
it. So, and then my second question, based on what you said earlier, is the dog musher. I didn't realize. So, is that the dog musher that you mentioned in Hiding in
Yes,
Alaska when they go there?
yes,
Okay,
Kate,
so
Kate.
I
He
didn't
has
know
his
he was
own
I didn't
story.
realize he was African American.
Yes,
That's
yes,
very cool.
yes.
you know, I'm all over that book.
Yes. And you know what? It's funny, I guess, because just writing during the pandemic, I just felt writing that book. Sometimes you write a book and you feel like, oh gosh, this is not going to be good. But when I finished that book, I was like, this is one of the favorite books I've ever written. And so then to get a cover that, in my opinion, is slamming, I was like, yes, like all the
Yeah, I
forces
love the
work
cover. I love
together.
the cover.
When forces work together, and sometimes you
Yeah.
just don't know. I mean, usually I've gotten really nice covers, but you just never know. You never know.
You never know. You never know.
So
So
this one,
let's talk a little bit more about Hiding in Alaska.
okay.
And like you said a little, you told us a little bit about it already, but if you have,
Yeah.
give us a little bit more about the story and the characters Isabel and Connor.
Okay. Isabel is someone who has witnessed a violent crime, and she gets into the witness protection program and ends up in this little town, this little quaint town of Owl Creek, where she meets Connor North, who is the heir to the North chocolate company. And basically, it's about how she navigates her way in this small town while falling for a man that she's really hesitant to fall for because she's not who she's claiming to be. And part of WITSEC is you're not supposed to tell anybody who you are, what you're doing there. but he starts to suspect because there are times she doesn't answer to her name. There are times when he catches her in talking about, I think she pretends, I can't remember because it's so long that I wrote that. She pretends that she's from, I think it was Arizona, and she doesn't
Yes.
quite know.
Yes.
She doesn't quite know about the weather
The
in
weather
certain
there. Yeah.
parts. So he's kind of like, something isn't making sense. And part of his history is his sister was kidnapped as a baby and only recently came back to them. So that part of him that doesn't trust people, he starts to wonder, well, what is going on? And it's more than just suspicion. It's based on his family's trauma of the sister being missing all those years and kidnapped by somebody who came to the town and took her. So um, people really seem to like that story. I think people like a little twist, and I always try to make a little twist. I'm not always successful, but I think I like writing stories that have kind of an underbelly of something more than maybe the characters, what they've been through in the past, or even with this heroine, what she's going through, and how amazing would it be? I mean, how also traumatic to witness something violent, and then your whole life. She left behind her parents, siblings, nieces, and nephews, never thinking never that she would see them again. So I kind of tried to tap into that of what it would be emotionally to give up everything because you had the courage to testify and do all that. So
I think you did a really great job of that. Like I said, I
thank
read that book
you.
and just blew through it and
Oh,
loved
thank you.
it. So a lot of people know that I was horribly sick for
Oh,
several days,
poor
and so
thing.
I spent all that time when I wasn't sleeping doing a lot of
Oh,
reading.
I'm
And
glad you're better.
I thank you.
I'm
I
glad
am
you're
too.
better.
I feel like I'm among the living again.
Oh,
So yeah, so I love the book, and I thought you did
well,
a really
thank
good job of
you.
tapping into that. Lisa Marshall says that sounds very interesting. It is
Oh,
really
thank you,
fascinating.
Lisa.
And Mary Redmond says, I want to read this book now. You definitely should
Oh,
download it
thank
now. And in the
you.
description bar here, you'll find the link to Hiding in Alaska if you want to download a copy of that book. It
Oh,
is a fantastic book, and I really liked how you not only tap into her, you know, her feelings of having left everything behind
yeah,
and kind of trying to deal with that, as well as his feelings of this lack of trust because of
yeah,
what had. And that's another thing, I have to go back now and read the first book because I was looking through them
yeah,
now, because like that's one of the things I love about when you read a book later on in the series and it
series,
mentions
yeah.
other couples.
You're like,
So I'm
wait
like,
a
okay, I got
minute.
to read their story and I have to read their story.
Yeah.
so so I have to go back and read that first. I thought that was the very first one with the uh the woman who was Sage, who was kidnapped.
Oh,
So
yes, yes, his
so I'm gonna
sister.
make sure. So now I got to go back to the beginning, and then there's Rachel and the twins. So like, there's a lot of
Oh,
catching
Rachel the twins,
up.
my favorites.
Yes. So then your most recent release is, and let me just make sure. Okay. So your most recent release is The Ordinary Christmas, which is the Grand Central book. And that one starts off your series. It's called Mistletoe, Maine. Is that right? Is the entire series going to be set at Christmas?
No,
Okay.
no. I think this is the only one at Christmas. Yes. I love writing Christmas, but guess it can't always be Christmas. The second one is
so
summer. Is summer because it's called Summer at Blackberry Beach.
okay. So tell
Number
us a
two.
little bit about the premise of No Ordinary Christmas.
No Ordinary Christmas is about, well, I kind of mixed my favorite things, which is librarians, which I adore libraries and librarians. My heroine, Lucy, is a librarian in the quaint Maine town of Mistletoe. And the book starts with her sort of looking out the library window and kind of fuming because the town has gathered to have this welcome home parade for the golden boy of Mistletoe, Dante West, who was her first love, so to speak. So he kind of left town in order to be this big success in Hollywood, and he was supposed to take her, but he didn't take her. He just left town with barely an explanation. So she's had to sit on the sidelines all these years and kind of watch the town fawn over him, and he's become a huge star. I kind of imagine him, he's like a blockbuster Vin Diesel type who's been in all the action movies, and he's really made a name for himself. So he's come back to town to make a film. And part of his reason is he wants to have closure and make amends with Lucy. But at the beginning, she's not having it because she's like, wait a minute, you totally broke my heart and left me in the lurch. So it's really about the magic of Christmas and the two of these characters coming together and seeing if they have a future together.
Love it. I love it, love it, love it. Yay.
All in the quaint town of Mistletoe.
Yeah, that's such a cute name too. For
yes,
the
I like that. I like
that's one of the fun
names.
things about
Yes.
writing these series is like, especially when
Yeah.
you do a fictional town, is coming up with the name of the town or whatever.
Coming up with the name of the town, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's funny.
You can put so much meaning into it. You like, there's so much you can put into the name
Yes,
of the town. So
exactly. And it's funny now. It's funny because it's Christmas. All I see is books, mistletoe, like mistletoe kisses, mistletoe. So I don't know how original it was, but it was fun.
Mama Tony said Hiding Alaska was a good book. I need to read the first one. Me too,
Oh,
Mama
thank
Tony.
you.
It was so good. And then I was like, yeah, now I need to go back and read all these other couples starting with Sage.
Oh, thank you.
And yes, Miss Loretta, who's librarian, says awesome librarians. Yes. Love those libraries and librarians.
Love librarians, yeah.
So before I switch over into talking about the topic, there were two questions that I saw earlier that I wanted to. Oh, okay, yeah. Miss WOC Reader says,
Hi.
interesting, because you mentioned earlier about Love Inspired not wanting those, New England stories. And so she says, interesting because I've been looking for Black romances set in New England and they're hard to find. So that's interesting. And it's funny too. I do know, and a lot of readers might not realize this, but with certain imprints and stuff, they can be very specific about where you can and can't set the story. So for instance, in Desire, it's, we write, these American settings, like we don't, like I might have a reader, a character go somewhere, but for the most part, it's going to be set, in America or whatever. We don't do like the locations, overseas,
we can't
exotic locations and stuff. That's presents territory.
Right.
That kind of thing. So
we can't do overseas either.
Or even sometimes within our own series, for instance, the Moonlight trilogy that Karen and Joss and I did, from the beginning, we wanted to do Asheville. And it was actually a suggestion from somebody else in the organization, in the organization. And at first they were like, we got some pushback on setting it in Asheville. They're like, oh, we have some, stuff already set in the Smoky Mountains. We're like, this is the Blue Ridge Mountains. No. Like we had to like, do a little pushback and beg to kind of like set it in Asheville, because at that point we really had it set in our minds, and that's where we wanted to have set. But a lot of times they will look at, okay, we have too many series set in this particular area. We don't want another series set in Nashville because we got 3 already, that kind of thing. So sometimes those things can have an effect. But that's very interesting what she was saying about looking for Black romance.
I do have, I think, I can't remember, it was second. I think it was my second or third Love Inspired is a Black romance. And this is also another one of my favorites. It's called Forever Her Hero. And it's set in, I managed to sneak it in. It's set in Cape Cod. And it's about a widow and a Navy SEAL guy. And they're like best friends and turn to romance. And I managed to squeeze that in because it's a Cape Cod setting.
Now tell us the name of it again.
Forever Her Hero.
Forever Her Hero. So there you go.
I got one
story with a black romance
story. Yep.
Set in New England. Okay.
I had a lot of fun doing it too.
And AGL says, I live in Scotland and people here don't understand the romance industry fascination here, yet they love the cowboy romances. You just never know what people are gonna like. And I guess that's part of what publishers and stuff look at too when they're deciding like where they're gonna set stories and things like that. So now on to this topic of the diverse small town romances. So both of your series are small town diverse romances. My Grand Central is a small town diverse romance, and so lots of authors actually have been writing these, like Rochelle Ehlers and
Yeah.
Kathy Douglas and stuff like that. So like,
Happy
people have been
Douglas.
writing this
Yeah.
for a while, but
Yes.
we tend to think of this small town romance as this
Yeah.
kind of homogenous,
Hmm.
largely white space in
Yeah.
romance. Um, However, we're starting to definitely see a shift in that.
Hmm.
Not only are readers really demanding that, just
Oh,
like
yeah.
we had somebody say, okay, I
Publishers.
want this black
Yeah.
romance here. We're
Hmm.
starting to see more and more people
Yes.
want to see these small town romances with more a more diverse
Diversity.
cast
Yeah.
of characters. And so now publishers, of course, are starting to see it. So you're starting to see more and more
More. Hmm.
notices that people have signed contracts for these small town romances at different places like Grand Central. Grand Central has signed several other people, in addition to us, who are
Oh.
writing diverse small town romances. So,
Oh.
as an author of color, tell us, what are some of the challenges that you face writing small town romance and trying to build a diverse community?
I don't know whether it's I don't really feel that it's been a challenge, but I do know that for years and years, I would always hear little things like, well, from non, readers of color who would say, I just don't think I would really enjoy a book with diverse characters. I really can't read a Black romance. I can't read a Latina romance. So I've always used to hear that, and it really used to bother me just because for so many years we didn't have an option of what we would read. We would just read. I mean, hello, Nora Roberts. I used to devour her books, and the thing is, when I was growing up, I think maybe there was Sandra Kitten, maybe she had one book, but I wouldn't have read anything if I stuck strictly to Black authors. So and I really don't understand that mindset because to me, the characters really it's about their motivations, it's about their desires, their hurts, and how the story processes. So I don't get that whole thing. So I'm happy that I do have, a reader base that seems to not care and not dwell on the color of skin. It really is about the storyline, the characters. And if there's ever a problem, I've never gotten the feeling that, oh, it's because they're Black, or oh, because, well, you made her, Hispanic or whatever. It's something that is in my mind though, because I do know that there are readers who don't seem to warm up to um, stories that don't reflect their own skin color or whatever culture. But I'm hoping that that too is only because of exposure, because for so long there was not exposure. And I do believe that a lot of this whole issue was the gatekeepers in publishing. It wasn't necessarily the readers. They were only trained what they knew. So I think that's changing a little bit, but it does cross my mind sometimes when, I'm writing it thinking, I'm hoping that these characters will be embraced just for who they are and for the story and don't dwell on the color of their skin. But people have been really receptive. So I can't, I don't have any complaints in that area.
You made an interesting comment because this um, this dilemma about getting more diverse,
Mhm.
more eyes on diverse books out there. Because
Yeah.
first of all, like, yes, there's the whole thing about let's get more diverse books out there, but let's face it, there have always been tons of diverse books out there. It's just
Yeah.
that they weren't getting the same marketing, they weren't getting the same push. A
Yeah.
lot of publishers weren't picking them up, but there were plenty of folks out there writing them,
Yes.
especially in the
Plenty.
indie, especially in the indie
Plenty.
space.
Yeah.
So so but one of the it was always like a really, I looked at it as a really multifaceted problem because it like was there's the thing about the gatekeeping and publishers not picking the books up, but then there was also the thing about, okay, will the readers pick it up,
Yeah.
so, and what you said about, I can't remember how you phrase it, about like there it's like a learned thing or whatever
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
readers.
Yeah.
that's all they've been kind of exposed to or whatever at that point, or that's all
Mhm.
they've kind of seen. And we are seeing that now that you're seeing more diverse books out there, not just necessarily just small town, but
Right.
across the board. And and that's Black, Asian, Indian, just all these different books you're
Latin,
seeing, and they're
yeah,
doing so well
they're doing so
in this,
well.
because they're being, first of all, given the opportunity, giving good covers,
Yes.
giving serious
Great
marketing
covers.
money,
Yes.
what I'm saying, and exposure and stuff being put on these different lists because the books are damn good,
Great.
and
Yeah.
they always have been. They
Yeah.
just didn't get the exposure. So like I think the publishers are starting to see, wow, okay, these books can do well. Guess what? If you give them the same money, they can do
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
Give them a
that. They
little
can do well.
TLC.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a very exciting thing to see all that. But I do think you probably do. That was something that was very upsetting to me, to have people think, "Oh, I can't relate to this story,"
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
these brown people on it, or
Yeah.
what. But
It
give
boggles
me
the
some
mind.
vampires and some werewolves, because
I
I
know.
can relate to
I can
them.
relate to a shapeshifter.
So, but yes, I think as you see more and more of these books on the shelves and
Mhm.
doing so well,
Yes.
people are learning and
They're
expanding and
learning.
saying, hey,
Yes.
okay. So, yes, I thought that was an interesting point that you made there. I would say for me, one of the challenges I do believe is, how can I put this delicately? Okay. I feel like a publisher will feel like, okay, well, we know our audience, we know our space, we know
Mm.
small town.
Yeah. Yeah.
What they mean is they know white readers. You know what I'm saying? So they're thinking from this whole white perspective.
Perspective. Yeah.
And so they'll say, okay, I want a diverse story. But, I read, somebody put a tweet out the other day and it said, everybody wants diverse until diverse people show up.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying?
It's the
So I
idea of
think,
it. The
yes.
idea of it.
So it's like, okay, cool, we're gonna have
Mhm.
this diverse story, but guess what? My people are blackity black.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
We
yes,
don't want
they,
that.
they're everyday people, but yes, they're also black. And so they're gonna do stuff that's gonna,
Yeah.
maybe it's not gonna be familiar to you, but if you want a diverse story, you want to have, about diverse people, just
Yeah.
like Isabel is Hispanic,
Yeah.
Latina. And so, whatever that diversity is, you want to feel that flavor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
building that community, you want to feel that. You want
Yeah.
to walk, feel like you're walking through the neighborhood and feel, smell those different smells. You know
Right.
how you're in, like, you know, all these different, different neighborhoods that have,
Yeah.
uh, lean toward a particular ethnicity. Then
Yeah.
you
Whether it's
have all these different
Indian curry
aromas of
in the
foods and
air.
restaurants, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there's different stands you see where they're selling
Absolutely.
different wares and stuff that's going to be different in every community, and so you want to feel that
Yeah.
in
You want
these
to feel
diverse
the
communities and
flavor.
stuff. So that takes me to my next question is, what mistakes do you think publishers and editors are prone to make in this space of publishing diverse small town romance?
Um, I think, and this has nothing to do with Grand Central. It was when my agent was sort of shopping the book around, and there was a publishing company that wanted to have, I think we did have a phone call. I can't really remember. And I was asked the question, it was almost like, oh, well, there are Black people in Maine. And that just really irritated me because I'm from New England. And I'm like, yeah, there are Black people in Maine. And so I think sometimes people target things with their limited perspective. And it's almost like, oh, like almost like if a Martian landed on Earth, you know what I mean? Like, oh, Blacks. And so I'm thinking it was such a weird question because I grew up in Massachusetts, but my family, we would sometimes head to Maine for summer, and it's like Martha's Vineyard. No, yes, there are Blacks in Martha's Vineyard. Yes, there are Blacks in Massachusetts and Maine. So I think sometimes it's taking their own sort of perceptions of things and kind of putting them out there. And it almost seemed like it was like very, I almost wondered if we had gone with that publisher, they would have wanted me to change it from Maine. I got that big feeling that it was, that type of a thing where Maine's not going to work. So it's kind of, I think they need to expand, because obviously we know there's not a whole lot of editors of color in publishing. Still, you see that, and that's one of the things that, despite this whole evolution, I have not seen that change. I have not seen them bringing in editors of color or people in literary houses who reflect the diversity of the authors. So I don't necessarily know if that would have been asked by a person of color, but I just think it's interesting that sometimes it's sort of their perspective, and they don't sort of try to open up. But thankfully, that didn't happen with Grand Central. It wasn't even a question.
That, you make an excellent point there. And I do think that a lot of publishers are really stepping up their game in terms of giving us lots of representation.
Oh, that's good.
In their imprints. But you make an excellent point.
Yeah.
You don't really see a lot
No.
of representation
No.
behind the scenes in the
behind the
editorial
scenes.
staff.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference, because like you said, some of those questions you get where people are just like not really getting it.
Yeah.
I think that, if you have a more, and it doesn't even have to be like necessarily your person that you're working with. If the team, I think, has a little bit more diversity to it, I think that you see that makes a difference even,
Yes. And that's even covers, and that's just a lot of different ways when the book goes along the route that it could be touched by different people. So I'm hoping that changes.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then the mistake that I would probably say, I feel like a lot of publishers probably are making when it comes to this whole thing of expanding, and especially in this particular genre or subgenre of small town romances. If you say you want to write a diverse small town romance series, then you need to go allow a person to write a diverse small town series, not try to get the same old small town with brown people. You know what I'm saying? So don't try to get the same, homogenous whatever, but just the people are brown. That's not how this works. If you want it to be diverse, it should really reflect, kind of the flavors of whoever the characters are and stuff. So I think that's a hugely missed opportunity. If somebody kind of takes that tack. And so Miss Loretta said yes, and then she's like, Reese is keeping it real. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm sorry. And so, and if you weren't here earlier, you didn't hear what I said about the Facebook thing. So if you're doing it from Facebook, if you don't go into the description and give StreamYard permission, hit that link and give StreamYard permission to see your name. We can't see who you are. So I apologize that we don't know who is making this lovely comment. But she says, they say Belle is a new author to me. Definitely will be reading her books. I highly recommend them. Like I said, I just read Hiding in Alaska and I absolutely loved it. I will also say this, Belle, because you already know I write hot. Mm-hmm. And I don't read a ton of sweet romances. You and Kathy Douglas and Piper usually are exceptions. Yeah. But I did not miss anything at all. A lot of times I read a sweet story and I'm like kind of waiting, like what am I gonna get this or that or whatever. And I never felt like that, because the whole time I was just like completely engaged in the story and in the emotions and all that kind of stuff, and trying to figure out who's gonna figure out what and all that kind of stuff. So
that's good to hear, because I sometimes hear, I think with No Ordinary Christmas, I think when you go into a series and it's, in the mainstream, I think a lot of people assume that it's going to be steamy. And I have nothing against steamy. It's just not sort of my brand. But it's hard to get dinged for not having steamy when there's not a promise of that. But definitely, and I'm sure sometimes maybe you get the opposite where it's like, oh, too much. I've gotten, oh, well, and that has really doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the story. There's no promise that there's going to be a steamy scene, but I think sometimes readers, especially I've noticed it with this one, that it was, oh, they didn't have sex or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Like,
There was no
sorry
there
to
was no promise
disappoint
made,
you.
but that promise is everything. You know what I'm saying? I think that if it's if you give the promise or that you give the impression that it's going to
Yeah.
be sweet, that you don't want
Yeah.
to disappoint readers. On the other hand, if you give them the impression it's going to be sexy or hotter, then you don't want to disappoint them with that either.
And I think
Whatever kind of pretzel logic you got going
yes.
on. No,
And
if
I
you
think
promise
that's
this,
the
this is what they're
brand.
expecting.
Yeah, I think that's where your brand comes into it, because
Absolutely.
anyone who's read my books, that's the promise. Is another one, Reunited at Christmas. It's our brand is sort of our promise. And not that I honestly, I read books with sexy times in it, but the thing is, my readers would probably revolt because that's not what I've given them. So it's like, just like with you, if you just had totally sweet, they'd be like, wait a minute. So it's kind of, we're tied into our brands in a sense.
Yeah,
It's sort of like
we
a
are.
stamp of, it's like the Good Housekeeping stamp. We have our stamp on our books, and
Yeah, you definitely do develop kind of a brand, and
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
more clear you are about it, the more you can
Absolutely.
consistently deliver that to readers, and
Yeah.
it also makes your life easier. That's for sure.
Mhm.
We have a question from AGL. Do you see a difference in U.S. readership versus international? I'm a woman of color from Scotland, but grew up in New England and lived around the U.S. And the attitudes are different. Good from here, okay. In my experience in Europe, that's interesting. I'd like to hear more about that difference in the attitudes you find in Europe. Do you find it
Yeah.
better in Europe, or was it better in the U.S.? That's one thing I would love to hear, AGL. So, um, Belle, have you seen a difference in USA readership versus international readership in terms of what what they like, what they don't like, or
I think
readership, or what have you?
with internationally, what I've seen is that there doesn't seem to be a big interest in inspirational. I know for my Harlequin books, I've never had one of my books, you know how people get the copies from like South Africa, or I've never gotten a physical copy that's from France or anywhere like that, because I don't think they really do them.
That's
Whereas
interesting.
Love Inspired is so popular here that, I mean, I've made Publishers Weekly many times, been in the top, 20 books, 25, whatever. So it's so popular here. But then at the same time, I don't think it translates internationally. I mean, I do have some fans that reach out to me from Ireland and Australia, but as I said, I've never seen us get like those bound books or something like a translation. I just don't think they do them. It's probably
That's
not
interesting.
profitable for Harlequin, because I've seen many others, seen special editions, design, different books, presents, and they don't do it for Love Inspired. So maybe there's just not an international interest. I mean, like an inspirational. So that's the difference I see.
That's interesting. I remember hearing Joss Wood say, because she writes for Desire as well as presents, but she was saying, I think she's a South African author, and I believe she was saying that there's not a ton of they don't sell a ton of Desires there, but it's the
Interesting.
presents that has the whole exotic international
Yes. Yes.
settings and stuff that they're more interested in. So that is interesting. So
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't see it. But I know some Harlequin books are really popular over there, but it's just not my line. I would
but it
love
sounds
to
like
get
they're
like a
doing really
French
well in the
one.
US though, so that
Yes,
can
yes, they're
balance
doing
out.
really
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it balances out.
For me, I have been and with all these recent books, I'm starting to really see an uptick of my books being translated.
So
So
exciting. That's
I'm having a lot of books translated into French.
oh,
Um,
That's my
German,
dream.
the Scandinavian countries,
Ooh.
and then I think of late Italy
Oh,
has
that's so
been, so yeah.
cool.
In addition to like the UK and
Oh,
Australia
that's
is
so
automatic, but
cool.
those other markets,
Yeah.
like yay, and Korea. The Bourbon Brothers
Wow,
series
that's exciting.
is
I
being
think
done
that's
in Korea. So
exciting.
yeah, you just, I
Yeah,
guess you just never know, right?
yeah, yeah.
You never know. Okay. Yes, Miss Loretta says I'm going to get some of her books too.
Oh,
Yes, I
thank you,
highly recommend
Loretta.
that. And like I said, the two we've been talking about, Hiding in Alaska and it's what is the title of this one?
No Ordinary
An
Christmas?
Ordinary Christmas. Thank
Yeah.
you. Are both in the description below. In the links are in the description below. So I love that. So what tips would you offer, Belle, to someone who wanted to break into writing diverse small
Mm,
towns, especially since we talked about how like there's a growing desire for
yeah,
it,
yeah.
from both perspectives of readers and publishers. We're seeing more and more publishers offer
Yeah.
contracts for
Mhm.
diverse small town romances. So what
Yeah.
tips would you offer somebody who's breaking into it?
My tips would be, first of all, to read. To me, I think reading is such a gateway to writing. Find out what's popular, what are the trends that are kind of popular right now. I would target certain publishers too. Before I would say writing conferences, but we don't have a lot of those lately. Uh, that's a good way to meet. And if you're in any community where you can connect with other authors, that's a wonderful tool because people also have like buddies that they critique manuscripts and just kind of being in the presence of other people who are moving towards the same goal, that is really helpful. You can brainstorm, you can really toss ideas around, and you never know when you're going to meet someone who sort of inspires you or helps you in your journey and getting more information. There are a lot of craft books out there, a lot of information about agents, but also make writing a priority. Don't make it just sort of something on the side. I know people who there are people who actually get published, and I've seen some of them that I'm author friends with. They'll get published, and then you'll hear them talking about all these things, and they're not working. It is work. It is planting your butt in the seat and writing, even when you don't want to. And I've personally missed out on many things where my friends have Christmas parties, and I've had a deadline, and I just once you sign a contract and you promise to do something, you're really kind of stuck to that. So it's not always glamorous and fun. It's a lot of work, but with work comes reward. That's how you get to the finish line. And if you choose to, look for an agent. Agents are also very helpful. I would not have gotten the contract with Grand Central because for Love Inspired, I didn't need an agent. For most Harlequin lines, you don't need an agent. But I knew that if I wanted to kind of go to single title and something like Grand Central, that I would have to get an agent. And she worked really well because literally she said to me, I was working on all these different things that I'd already contracted before her. And one day she was like, "Oh, do you have anything sort of in the works?" And I kind of didn't, but I'd had this thing, which was No Ordinary Christmas, that I'd been working on from a while ago, but I hadn't really given it much love. So she was like, "Okay, send it to me." And then she was like, "Oh, this is great. Now you just have to come up with a couple different blurbs." And I was like, "Blurbs for other books? This was just a one sentence." So I kind of just and surprisingly, she sent it to a bunch of people, and not everybody said yes. But in the end, it was kind of in a bidding war between two publishers. So it was kind of exciting. You're not always going to get a yes because I look back and I'm like, oh, so and so and so and so said no. But all you need is one yes.
And you're like, I didn't forget.
You can pick rocks. So that's what it's. I would say do the work and make connections, and that to me that's the really valuable stuff that will help you get to the
Some
finish line.
excellent tips. And I would add to, you know, more specific to writing this, subgenre or whatever, is, first of all, if you want to write that, then definitely want to read a lot of it. you know?
Yes. Yes.
So definitely reading lots of people who write small
Yeah.
town that you feel like they do it well.
Yep.
You want to kind of read what they're writing. And one of the things that I definitely learned and my editor helped me with in writing when I first, because like honestly, pretty much all my series except for the very first one I wrote
Mm-hmm.
are set in a small town,
Small
a
town. Yeah.
fictional small town.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were in negotiations with Grand Central to start this series, that was one of the questions I was asked. How does she ask me? She asked, do I write small town contemporary or do I write contemporary romance set in a small town? And at first I'm like, what kind of question is that? So, but then I kind of get it
Yeah.
because I have always written my contemporary romances set in a small town. But once we wrote this first book, then I really understood how important the town is. For
Yeah.
instance, in small town romance, it
Mm-hmm.
really is a character,
Yeah.
and she did really help me really work on making the reader feel like they were in the town,
In
like
the
they were a
town.
part of
Yeah.
the town.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would say things like, oh, they felt like they were there and they wish they could go there and that kind of thing.
Aww, it's a
So
great compliment.
yeah, so that's the kind of thing that, if you want to write the small town genre, you want to kind of look at things like that. How can you really make the town feel like almost another character and someplace that readers will want to spend
Oh,
some time
yeah.
there and go back to. So there. Okay, so before I round out real quick, if you have any other questions, I'm rounding up, y'all. So if you drop any other questions you might have in there. So my next question for you, Belle, is what is next for you?
What is next for me? I am finishing up a book for Harlequin Love Inspired that's due January 3rd. So I'm writing that now. After that, I am going to be writing my third book for Grand Central, Mistletoe. And it's one of the characters, a widowed father of a little boy. It's going to be his love story. And then after that, I'm going to be doing something that I've never done before. I'm going to be writing a 40-year-old heroine for Love Inspired.
Nice! Yay!
It's
We
always,
love it.
yes, they're always younger. I'm like, I'm writing a 40-year-old heroine. So I
I
kind of think
love
that's
it. I
exciting.
love it.
Yeah, that's kind of exciting for me. And yeah.
That is exciting because I'm all about that right now. Is
Yeah.
heroines that are 35 and up,
Yes,
40s,
yes.
whatever. I'm
It's
writing one right now that's 39, about to turn 40.
yes, yes, yes. Well, mine is my heroine is also 40 and pregnant, and it's an interracial romance. So it's a lot of little twisty things in there, yeah. So I'm looking forward just to writing that because there's so many different elements
There
and
will be a pregnancy in mine too.
oh really?
I love it.
Hey, it
I love
happens.
it. Yes, I love to see that representation.
Yes.
I always say that diversity is not just race;
Not
it's
just
also
yeah.
things like seeing a span of ages and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So
sizes too, just there's so many different ways that we can explore, this diversity. So
yeah, I love that. So I love this comment. First of all, thank you that you felt like that about Cypress Lane. We worked on
oh
that hard about making the town really feel like,
yeah,
So that's something I'm working with on the second book
yeah,
because like I love the story. I'm trying to turn up the town a little bit. So
yeah.
but we also are excited about heroine or
Yes.
older heroines. So I know I definitely am.
It's about time.
So yeah, exactly. And AJL says, I love the older heroines and 50 plus is good too. I agree.
Mhm.
I wrote a story, something about you, where the heroine was 45 and the hero was 50. But I
Ooh,
definitely am looking forward
God.
to that writing that first book where the heroine is 50.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're getting there, right? We're getting there.
We're
I'm
getting
inching my
there.
way
We're
up. I'm
keeping up.
inching my way up. I love it. So,
Absolutely.
Belle, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
Tell
thank you
readers
for
where
inviting me.
they can connect with you.
I am always on my author Belle Calhoune Facebook page. I do a lot of giveaways. I do a lot of posting. I have a lot of fun over there. I'm also on Instagram, author Belle Calhoune, and on Twitter. But really, the connection that I'm always on my Facebook page, and I love doing giveaways. So, and I have a lot of these books to give away. So, Harlequin
Yes.
sends so many books. I'm drowning in books. I'm like, my
Especially with
husband's
the
like,
reader
"Where-"
conventions, right? So with the reader
Yes,
conventions, it was a great way to, that's what
it's a
those were
great way to
for.
dole them out. Hmm.
Yes, I have pushed them all out of my office, but for a long
Oh,
time I was surrounded by
wow.
boxes and boxes and boxes. So
Yeah, I have so
especially certain
many.
ones. So I'm like, oh my God.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So yes,
Crazy.
if you're didn't get a chance to write down, where to connect with Belle, again, in the description, you'll find the link to her website. And from her website, you can find all her other social media, real estate, and what have you, and connect with her. So don't forget to, by all means, go and check out Belle online and look for her, look for Hiding in Alaska, and look for No Ordinary Christmas, as well as the entire Is It Return to Owl Creek, the series.
Yes.
So I'm definitely going to be starting back from the beginning and going back to finish that. So,
If you want to do a giveaway, I can do a giveaway if you want to
oh,
pick up the
nice. We like
giveaway.
it. Oh, okay,
Yes.
go ahead,
Yes.
do your thing. Tell them.
Somebody, I guess, who comments, Reese can pick the person. You can get a copy. We'll do two people. One can get No Ordinary Christmas, and one can get this reissue of Reunited at Christmas. This is a very sweet story too. So,
I love
oh,
it. I love it.
and
Okay,
a
so I
third
tell
one,
you what,
Hiding in
then
Alaska.
for
Here we
everybody
go.
who's left,
Yeah.
if you would like to get a copy of one of these books, tell us which one you want in the
Yeah.
comments below, and then we'll pick one, and so that you get it. Hey, Felicia, thanks for joining us. So, so go ahead and let us know in the comments which one you would like. I will pick one of those folks, and then I will pass you on your information on to Belle so that she can get you those two books. So tell us the books again, too, that you're giving away.
Do you want to give it to three different people? There are three: No Ordinary Christmas, Reunited at Christmas, and I'll do Hiding in Alaska too.
Oh, yay!
The feature book.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, yeah.
Those
So
three. Yeah.
All
Be a
right,
little
y'all.
stocking stuffer for someone.
Yes. Okay. I love it. So Jennifer says anyone is good for her. I like that. So that makes it nice and easy. And so let's go Mama Tony. She's quick on the draw with No Ordinary Christmas. I'm going to pass her on to you for that. Okay. So remember that. Let me write it down because so that's Mama Tony. He's going to get that No Ordinary Christmas. Okay. I like it. And, Caitlin's going to get Hiding in Alaska. You're going to love it, Caitlin. It's really good. Okay. And then we got one more, right? And
yeah, we got Reunited at Christmas.
Whichever one. So, Jennifer Copeland. What's the third one?
Yep, Reunited at Christmas.
Reunited at Christmas.
Yeah, it's all about Christmas.
It's Jennifer. So that's our three winners. We have Jennifer Copeland with Reunited at Christmas. We have Mama Tony, No Ordinary Christmas, and Caitlin is Hiding in Alaska. I will pass those people's name, or I'll connect you in
addresses.
Yep, okay?
I'll mail them
out. So I'll connect you in Messenger with them, and then you can get their information there.
Awesome.
So thank you again, Belle, for not only coming to visit us, for doing an awesome giveaway. So for y'all who hung out at the end, good for you. Yeah. The people who left
get books.
I love it. So thank you so much for
you're welcome.
Us today,
thank you
Belle.
for inviting
I know you're going to be back in the future.
It was a pleasure.
Belle and I talk all the time on Messenger, on Facebook, all the time about different stuff. So, I'm sure you'll come back at some point.
Oh, that would be lovely.
Later on in the series for one of your next books, and we'll chat again. So, but
great.
thank you, and you hang out, and I'll see you in a minute.
See you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Yes, thank you. So that was Belle Calhoune, author of Hiding in Alaska, as well as No Ordinary Christmas. great books. She did a fantastic giveaway. I'm so excited about the giveaway. That was unexpected, even for me. I didn't know that was going to happen. And I'm so glad that you all got some books in it. I'm excited that there's folks who are here all the time supporting the show. I appreciate y'all so much. So thank you for being here. Don't forget, if you haven't already ordered a box, Bourbon Brothers Experience box, which I sent a note to everybody about all of the things with the supply issues and stuff, and why that those boxes are going out a little bit later than we expected. So whether if you got a box, you're getting this stuff already. But if you haven't already ordered the Bad Boy Experiment, you can pre-order it from Love Sweet Arrow or the Rip Bodice. And when you pre-order it, you will also get these goodies like stickers and bookmarks and the coaster, the super cute coaster from the King's Finest distillery, as well as access to the digital version of the brochure with like recipes, drink recipes, food recipes, and all that kind of good stuff. So make sure you do that, and don't miss out on the Holly Jolly holiday party on Friday in the coffee cupcakes and contemporary Facebook group. Over 100 authors happening all day, lots of giveaways, so don't miss it. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you here on an unusual day, Tuesday, December the 28th. Nina Crespo and I are doing a joint release party, pajama party. And so we're going to kick it off at 7 right here on the 28th, which is a Tuesday. And then after that, I'll see y'all next year. But I'll see you in a couple weeks. But thank you so much for joining us. Y'all have a good evening and happy reading.